Welcome back into the KSR Football Podcast presented to you by our friends at Justice Dental. I'm Nick Roush, joined by Adam Luckett, Freddie Maggard, and Justice Dental's number one patient, Drew Franklin. Drew, how are the teeth feeling today?
Going great. Hadn't been to Justice Dental in about 3 weeks, so I need to get over there. It's been far too long since I've gotten these things cleaned.
If you haven't been to either one of their two locations, they got one on Blazer Parkway and then one on Wellington Way. Each side of town, very convenient. Schedule an appointment today. Just go to justicedental.com or give them a call at 859-543-0700 to hang out with Dr. Justice or Doc Thompson. I'm sure Doc Thompson, if you can hang out with him at the dentist's office and then at the Kroger Field tailgate lot, one of the biggest Wildcat fans out there. Justice Dental, we greatly appreciate them supporting the KSR podcast, KSR Football Podcast. And I actually do want to run into Doc Thompson at the tailgate lot because I'm certain he's got a great setup. There was a lot of great setups out there Saturday. It felt good to be back out at the Krog.
Felt very good to be back at the Krog, and I'll confirm Doc Thompson's great to tailgate with. The man knows his bourbon just like he knows good teeth. Yeah, this Saturday we had lots of fun out there. Weather held off was the big part after some scares in the forecast. I especially like seeing the young freshmen who are getting their first game day in, who I could tell just driving in and walking to the stadium, they didn't make it to kickoff. I saw some people that were already on their way home, but overall a great environment, especially for a week one game.
Well, and Freddie, we thought there was a lot of people who were worried about the weather, a bunch of worry weather willies, and it didn't keep them away. That's one of the best. It wasn't officially a sold out, but it was awfully darn close. And even if you saw it at kickoff, there was a lot of people who, we're all getting used to week one that kind of slowly filtered into the stadium. One of the best season opening crowds I can remember during the Mark Stoops era.
Yeah, it was. I know KS Bar was packed. And I got there early and went up to the office to get some more prep work in, and it was packed. And the stadium looked packed from my vantage point from my living room and on my porch a few times. So, yeah, it was great for the fans. It was great for the players, too, to see that because you built up, which, I find it kind of odd because one of my critiques of the team for Saturday is I didn't see the juice, man. I did not feel the juice, didn't see the juice. And that shocked me because the crowd won, 2, because a win, Stoops with Ty Bear Bryant, 3, you're after a long camp. But, it is what it is. But, yeah, the crowd was great. The crowd certainly did their part.
Let's get into some of the favorite things we saw from Kentucky's 37-13 win. We'll get a little bit more into the critiques later on and give a little sneak peek of Florida because I know that's what is on everybody's mind. Lucky, what was the best thing you saw in Kentucky's 24-point win over the Miami Redhawks?
Just that Will Levis can be everything we thought he could be. I think we can talk about this team a lot, but at the end of the day, like they're going as far as 7 takes them. So there's pieces around him that has to get better. You still want to see him take strides, but you saw him come in and really have full control of the offense. And they created scoring opportunities in 7 of their 9 possessions. And then one of them was given to him by the defense. So we could say 6 of 8. But, that's 75%. Like, he was in full control. Distributing the ball to multiple targets. We saw him make throws at all 3 levels. We saw him play through some adversity, get hit, get sacked, never lost his cool or composure. And I think just him in general, like that was what we needed to see. First step, comes out, throws for over 300 yards, over 9 yards per attempt. There was some ball placement issues he could obviously improve, but overall, I thought that was the big thing, that he looked like what we thought he could be, and I think that's a good first step for this season.
Yeah, I would prefer him to not try to jump over 7 dudes with like 5 yards to go. Maybe save that for the Florida game.
That's right, but sooner or later he's going to have to run through an MFer's face, and maybe that's what this team needs to get what Freddie's talking about, to get them going. That is still going to be who he is. At times he's going to do that, but yeah, I think you don't necessarily want to see him diving from the 7-yard line on a 3rd and 6. But that's that, you go back to the Steve-O conversation. That's who he's going to do some stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I didn't necessarily hate to see. You don't want him to ever lose that. Like, he can lose that in the NFL. He doesn't need to lose it 100% right now. He still needs to have some of that. I mean, I think that gives the team an edge a little bit. So I mean, that got everybody nervous. But I didn't like. Maybe it's just my old offensive lineman inside me. I was like, man, that's still awesome that a quarterback will do that. And so I really like that that he's still willing to lay his body on the line. He's just got to be smarter, like you said. But overall, I think for him, it was just a good first step for Levis. There's obviously things. Look at him. It takes three guys. I thought he was going to bounce off and spin in the end zone there for a second.
I just love the mentality. Like, be as confident as Will Levis is trying to jump over three dudes. Like, I want that blind confidence one day. Maybe it's just a quarterback thing, Freddie. I'm sure back in your Dr. Cool days, you thought you could throw a football over, Jellicoe Mountain.
Yeah, there's actually a picture of maybe at KSR somewhere. I'm doing about the same exact thing he's doing against Auburn. So, yeah, I get it. You know what? The best thing from Saturday – normally, I like to get in the weeds with the numbers and X and O's and all that. I'm going to zoom back out to 35,000 feet here. The best thing about Saturday was a 24-point win over a good MAC football team with a good quarterback, good receivers, and offensive line with 4 returning starters. Kentucky, defensively, I thought, exceeded my expectation. You hold Miami 100-plus yards less passing, didn't allow 300 total. Was still, didn't allow a red zone touchdown. They got that one long touchdown, and that was it. So the defense exceeded my expectations, but back to 35,000 feet.
Shut them out in the second half too, Freddie.
It's a 24-point win over a good MAC team in the first game, and we all tried to tell people there's so much new about this Kentucky offense. That's why I couldn't predict the season. That's why I had a hard time with this, and it kind of went that way. So. But back to 35,000, big win. Week 1 is hard. A lot of new players beat a good MAC opponent that's projected to win the division by 24 points. I'll take it every day in an opener, Drew.
I'll take that, but I have to go the opposite way that Luckett did. I think I'm one of the people who he called out for not liking Levis jumping in the air. Since I was sitting next to Levis or Luckett, I cannot speak, and I yelled, "No, not this game." I think he's one of the people I'm speaking about. But what I liked, I don't want to take the obvious answer and say Barron Brown's touchdown run. Obviously, that's all of our favorite part of the game. But I like that he and Dane Key answered the questions that we had. We heard all fall about how good they're going to be, all this hype. Dane this, Dane that from my colleague Ryan. And both of them performed right away, right out of the gate, and proved that the hype is real and that they're going to be making plays from day one on campus. We've already seen it. So I'm going to be very broad in my takeaway and just say the 2 freshman wide receivers really showed out, and it didn't take long.
I want to get more into the weeds, but I just can't ignore the commenters who are falling in love with Adam Luckett. I mean, who knew he had such a face for YouTube? I mean, I thought I was the star, but goodness gracious, Luckett, take a bow. Is your wife, is she the one? She got a bunch of burners or something? What's going on here?
I wouldn't put it past her.
Yeah, for our podcast listeners, everyone on YouTube is talking about how hot Luckett is. So
yeah, didn't realize he was so handsome.
No kidding.
She's gonna get a kick out of this when I go upstairs.
How about Luke D says I'd hold his hand in public? Wow, y'all get a room.
Oh man, I do want to add to both what Freddie and Andrew said. Starting with the defense, though, just because this was a team that took a unit, in particular in the secondary, took a lot of heat last year, rightfully so. They weren't great in this game. After the first drive, I mean, I expect you to give up some points and give up some plays on that first drive. You know, there's a lot of juice, there's a lot of nerves in there. You know, throw that one away, and they gave up 2 field goals the rest of the game. And one of those field goal drives, they needed the refs' help like 7 times to get down the field. That pass interference on Carrington Valentine, I get, okay, if you want to call it like, ooh, he was early in the route, just call it holding. Like, pass interference is like contact at the end of the route. Just call it holding, not a pass interference when they throw the ball into the bleachers. That would be the only concern I have, though, is that was on the heels of him whiffing on a cornerback blitz. But aside from that, I mean, Miami had, I think, 2 passes the entire night over 15 yards. They were not explosive. The defense is getting back to what it's great at under Mark Stoops, and that's limiting the big plays. You know, they pop a big run early on, but everything else was just scrambles, right? The run defense was stout. Jaquez Jones looked like a dude who's played 70, 100 football games in the Southeastern Conference. And J.J. Weaver, as much as it took him a little while, like I feel like especially defensive line, just going up against guys who block differently. Once he got going, I mean, he has a strip sack. He blocks a kick. I mean, and that was just like a little bit of sprinkle of him. Once those guys in the trenches get a little bit more warmed up, Luckett, and get that shake off that rust, like I really liked what we saw from the defense. Mac caliber opponent aside.
Yeah, I think it's really important that 2 completions over 15 yards. This was a quarterback last year, over 20% of his pass attempts went over 15 yards. Like, this was an explosive passing game, and Kentucky took that away. I thought he might have gotten him early on that PI, and then I went back and watched the tape, and it's an egregious call. I mean, it is an awful call. It's one of the worst PI calls we'll probably see all year. It was awful. Because then he does that, they huddle up, and then he doubled down. Like, it was an awful call by that official. But defensively, I think the back 7 I was really impressed with. Weaver, I think, did some good things. The linebackers were also, like, Square and Jones are just like, they have like PhDs in defensive football, what Kentucky wants to do, and play recognition and communication. That they're just 2 steps ahead, it seems like, of everybody else. And then in the secondary, I think it's improved. Geiger and Asian are sound there at the 2 safety spots. And then Carrington,
Asian too. I mean,
Carrington, Kedron Smith as a corner duo together is an upgrade. We saw tackling out of the cornerbacks. It's not something we saw a lot last year. And then Afari at that kind of hybrid position. I mean, he's got some thump to him, and he looked like he belonged and was making plays. So that was good to see. The real worry for me was like the defensive front. And I say this, like, I thought the 2s played well. I thought Saunders flashed. I thought Deion Walker did some good things. But the one specifically, like Rogers and Ox, and then Hayes is the other one in the 2s. I thought he played well. But like Rogers and Ox, they just need more from them, both of them. I just thought I was going to get more from them going into that game. So that left me a little disappointed. And I thought Ripka played. I thought he flashed a little bit too. So he was good, I thought. But Rogers and Ox, Kentucky needs more out of them. They need some playmaking out of those guys. And so that's really what I came walking away from the game with. I felt pretty good about the defense. And you get Jordan Wright back, it's even going to be even better in kind of that back 7. But they need that their starters on the defensive line to really give them more, because they have the depth there, I think, with the 2s. And those guys are going to be able to stay fresh all year. You look at the snap count, they were all hovering around 35 snaps. And that's kind of the sweet spot if you can keep that going for the year. But their starters need to be better.
Drew, I just love that since we're on YouTube, you can see Freddie's exasperation whenever Luckett mentioned Rogers and Ox, because Freddie, I know you're thinking the same bit, and there's also a part of you that your mind is saying something different than what's going to come out of your mouth because you're not going to be a jerk about it. But I think you're in the same boat with Luckett when it comes to the 2 guys who were really supposed to be the stars of that front 3.
Yeah, I'm actually watching Yellowstone, so I kind of zoned out. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I didn't. 0 sacks come from the defensive line. You had 2 linebackers and a DB with the 3 sacks that Kentucky had, which is not totally uncommon, but that was one of my goals for the game. I wanted to see that defensive front. I just didn't see push. I didn't see push penetration from Rogers and then Ox. You know, Ox did a good job at chasing down some plays. I'll give him credit from that. Yeah. But you expect him. I mean, we thought he was on the cusp of becoming an all-SEC performer, and against a MAC offensive line, you would expect more there. And I'm just being honest. And but I do think the depth is good. Deion Walker flashed. I think he got tired, and a true freshman, the technique kind of evaporates there a little bit, and that's okay. He's going to get better every snap, but those linebackers are good. I'm going to do a weekly DeAndre Square countdown to 300. He's at 49 to enter the 300 club. And shout out to my guy Chris Chenault, 482, not in the UK Hall of Fame. He's the biggest travesty in the world. I had to get that out of my system. But anyway, and the DBs, I think the secondary is better than last year at every spot. I like Afari Phillips at that medium position. I know right in there, he gives them a lot. But, I want to see more forceful play from the ones up front. I mean, that's not a criticism. That's just an observation, and I think that's standardized. That's universal across this panel maybe. But, I wanted to see more.
I did like that Walker. He didn't get credited for a sack on it, but 3rd and long, Gabbert tucks it and runs, and Walker can chase him down, and he only gets like 1 or 2 yards. Khalil Saunders, there was one play where he was so close to getting home, and Gabbert ended up busting free. And, luckily, I think it was one of the freshmen. I think it was Afari was waiting for him about 4 yards down the field. The freshmen in general, like that's the biggest takeaway I can have, and it's across the board. Like Stoops was adamant all preseason that this was his best group of freshmen he's had since he got to UK, and that's abundantly clear. I mean, the plays that Afari was making in the open field, he ended up being second on the team in tackles. Like that's a very hard job, and he played it well. That the same thing for Keaton Wade. I mean, they rarely roll out outside linebackers, and they were going to do in this first game because they didn't have rights. They kind of had to. And then it's 3rd and long. They run a screen. He recognized it and just saws a guy in half. I mean, it was a very savvy play. Those guys were not missing a beat. And then offensively, with those guys, like we talk a lot on 11 personnel about changing your roster through recruiting. And I know that I asked Stoops after the game about this, and I don't think Kentucky's going to abandon that identity completely. But the strength of the team is no longer running the ball and getting downhill and just bullying the hell out of people. It's the receivers and quarterback. I mean, Tavion Robinson was incredible. He was a stud. And I know we wanted to temper expectations because he shares the last name of his predecessor who broke every record you can break in one season at UK. But he was outstanding. He's going to be an NFL player. Barian Brown was awesome. He was casually awesome. Didn't even look like he was trying that hard. And then Dane Key has been as steady as you could possibly expect. And you know what? Out of all of those guys, we're not even mentioning, Chauncey Magwood having a nice touchdown reception. Jordan Dingle throwing out the juke stick a little bit. I mean,
Marcus Harris, huge catch in a 2-minute drill to extend the drive and really be a drive starter. And that catch allowed them to go down and kick a field goal at the horn.
Like we're seeing Kentucky change who they are offensively. And to Freddie's point about the preseason, it's hard to know exactly what we're going to get. And I think that's going to be the case at Florida, where we still don't know exactly, but you can't rely on this running back room as it stands right now to play that kind of mauling football. You just can't look at it.
Yeah, I think you got to look at the personnel. Where are your strengths, right? I think a pass-heavy Kentucky may be something we see a little bit more this year. But, I mean, especially without Rodriguez. That's until Rodriguez gets back. When Chris gets back, it changes a little bit. But you don't have Chris right now. So that's kind of the prism we're looking in, as is. It changes when Chris gets back. And I think there is this aspect where you do need to lean into Levis. Like if he's your guy, you're gonna have to throw the ball more. But you also need to realize what kind of offense this is, and the play action pass game is going to be huge for you. So this could be an offense that changes. It could change midseason whenever 24 gets back in the lineup. But I do think your point there, Nick, recruiting wise, like they have totally flipped the wide receiver. I mean, it's not even. It's night and day.
Yeah.
I mean, in our live show at Kroger Field after the game, like, let's just call it what it is. They have 3 pros at receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Tavian Robinson is going to be a draft pick after this year, and Dane Key and Barry Brown have all the potential in the world, and they've already exceeded, I think, what our early expectations were for both of them coming into the program. And so that makes you think, well, maybe they can be better than maybe we even thought at the beginning. And so that is just very, very exciting for not just for the present, but for the future. Kentucky had this reputation of Mark Stoops out, it was like the big joke was they can't pass the ball. They should run the option full time with Lynn Bolden, and they have totally flipped that in 2 years, 3 years. Now that this is the beginning, I think, of kind of a pass game revolution we're going to see in Kentucky.
Since you think it'll change when Chris Rodriguez comes back, Nick, why don't you just go and tell us when Chris Rodriguez is coming back?
I've got some Chris Rodriguez thoughts, and before I get too angry, let me just talk about our friends at Prospects, because I don't want to be upset when talking about all of the money that you can win when you play with Prospects. If you haven't downloaded the app, what the hell are you waiting on? Download Prospects today to play daily fantasy with our friends. It's the best way to get in on the action in 70% of the United States and in Canada, right? It's pretty much everywhere. I know in the state of Kentucky, we're not allowed to make certain wagers, but you can play with Prospects. Download the app. Use promo code KSR to get an instant 100% bonus on up to $100 on your first deposit. So download $100, get $100 more to play with. This week we've got NFL games coming up. So for Thursday Night Football, you can bet Josh Allen over so many yards. I know they're giving away a Tom Brady square in your parlays. I mean, it's an outstanding, fun way to change up your gambling ways. So download the Prospects app today or visit prospects.com. Use the code KSR. Claim your bonus today. I just got to say, too, that this isn't just apply for the pros. They have it in college. And the Will Levis numbers were very fun because getting over 300, that was pennies. That was potatoes. We knew that was coming like it from a mile away.
Yeah. You just don't watch the game. Just listen to me, Roush. What are the people doing here?
Whoever Mark Stoops' bosses are just aren't doing their job. Like, I don't know who is on a power trip over there, but Stoops is clearly, like, I just want him to start naming names. If he doesn't want to do that personally, Mark, just give me a call. I will name names. We will put the public heat on him.
Tell us who the suit is so we can turn up the heat. Let us know who the suit is.
Whoever that suit is doesn't understand what pays the bill. It's football, all right? And you need Chris Rodriguez playing down in the swamp. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't care what high and mighty, altruistic personality you got. Like, that means nothing, okay? Wins and losses mean everything. I don't give a damn about your principles or whatever it is. He should be in the game. And if not, you got to say something, because right now everybody just thinks it's Mitch. I think it's some suit. Today, Stoops was like, well, it's a holiday, so I don't know anything. Holiday? Who over there is taking a day off? It's football season, damn it. Get your ass in there and get Chris Rodriguez in the game. They need him in the swamp. Let him play.
Tell the suit to get back from the lake, get up here, sign a paper, and let's play football.
It's going to stay warm all September long, all right? You can go to Harrington any day of the week. You can cut out at 3 o'clock. You can get your fishing in at night. We know it's not that hard to be a suit. I'm so sick and tired of all this gobbledygook. And Stoops has made it clear, like, he would play all of these dudes if he could. They're captains, for crying out loud. Nobody thinks anything that they did was wrong except one jagaloon that's over there working at the University of Kentucky.
Go off, Roush. Tell him about it.
Well, and the part that is even more infuriating.
We're going to have to clip this rant.
Is that like it's nothing on Smoke or Rye. Like, those guys just don't move a pile, right? Like, they can't get hit at 3 yards and turn it into 7 or 8. And you got to do that at Florida. Watch them back. Some of that game between Florida and Utah, those dudes were hitting. They were hitting, and they were hitting good. And I just the part that really hurts Will Levis in this passing game is not being able to keep the defense honest when you're in the play action, right? Like, I want to say there were 3 or 4 occasions instantly where the outside linebacker's crashing hard down in, and he just pays no mind whatsoever to that fake run. And Levis is immediately looking at him instead of looking downfield.
Why would you? You're not going to hurt me with a run right now.
Yeah, you can't.
Miami played against Kentucky exactly how I would. Force that offensive line to communicate, play games up front, twist, stunt, run blitz, delay blitz. And when you can't run the football, which Rodriguez, I mean, again, with him there, you run the football, but him there also, you have a play action game. I would not honor that play action game.
No.
Until you make me. And I can't believe we've gone 25 minutes and 40 seconds without talking about the offensive line. But until you make me honor that, I'm not going to you can do all the fake handoffs you want to. I'm going to either come after the quarterback or I'm just going to sit back and coverage because you're not going to hurt me with a run right now. 50 yards, I understand you have to take away sacks. Still, that was not up to standard of a Kentucky running game.
No.
When you look at Florida, that's what Florida's going to do. They're going to get in too high and say, if you can't run it, we're not giving anything big.
Kentucky's last in the SEC in rushing. When's the last time we've seen that under Mark Stoops? Behind Mississippi State and South Carolina. Mm-hmm. It's totally unacceptable. And a lot of that's got to do with Rodriguez being out. But with the offensive line, I watched it from a different eye than a lot of people. And I'm glad Mark Stoops said it was mainly 4 out of 5 positions did what they were supposed to. I thought Jagger played well. He graded out the highest on the offense of PFF. He got term 1. There was some communication issues. Not just Jagger, but the whole line went the wrong way a couple of times. Levis went the wrong way a few times. I mean, there was a lot that goes into that offensive line position. The left tackle position struggled. Let's just be honest. I mean, that was hard to watch. Mm-hmm. And that's why this week you're going best 5. You have to go best 5 against Florida. And I'm not so sure eventually they don't move Jagger out to tackle and have him and Horsey out there. That could be a play. But you're going to have to go best 5 because if you can't establish a run, it's hard. And listen, this Florida trip is hard for so many reasons. One, it's going to be so loud. Communication is going to be extremely difficult. What do you do when you can't communicate? You run the football behind an offensive line and a reliable running back. Right now, I don't see that with Kentucky. That's going to improve.
The communication is a big worry.
Yeah, and if you couldn't communicate at home, it's going to be. I think they're going to improve, but they're going to have to improve that. Yeah. So I'm not as concerned about the offensive line as I probably should be because I think moving Horsey to tackle is going to help a whole lot. 2, that Florida trip is difficult. You fly into wherever, you stay at Ocala, which is 45 minutes from Gainesville. The team doesn't stay in Gainesville. You have to take that hour-long bus ride from Ocala, Florida to Gainesville. I mean, it's just a tough trip. So there's going to be a lot going on for a lot of players. This is their first true road trip that they're going to be on the field. So little things like that, concern me going into Gainesville, going to the Swamp. But the number one thing that Kentucky's going to have to do offensively is communicate, and that starts up front with a center quarterback on out.
Yeah, and there was a lot of first go ahead, Drew.
I don't want to be the negative guy. I always try to be the positive guy, but I completely changed my pick for the game seeing that offensive line on Saturday. I had Kentucky going down there and winning at Florida, even in my own brain not expecting Chris Rodriguez to play, even though we were still a little hopeful this morning going into the press conference. I was just so disappointed in that group against a MAC school that's tough and physical, and they were veterans. But it's so hard to see them improving in a matter of days in the Swamp where they're already approaching a sellout crowd. I'm so worried about that, and then losing the 2 running backs that I've completely gone negative for the week.
And I didn't think I would do that either, Drew. That was part of the impetus of my Chris Rodriguez rant. I don't think you're winning down there without him because the guy you brought in to replace him got hurt on his 3rd carry or 2nd carry. He had the best run of the night, and he just immediately gets hurt. I mean, he's going to be out for several weeks. Chaton McClain is, quote-unquote, week to week. And then Lavelle Wright, who I thought looked the best out of all of them, he had an awesome pass pro and a solid run out there. I mean, he was wearing a red jersey for half of training camp with a hamstring. Yeah. And like those – that's an injury. If you overwork it, you're done. And then it's just smoking who else? It's just it's hard to see pretty much everything that you didn't want to see in that, like the worries that you had without Chris Rodriguez, they've all come to light in every form or facet.
and here's the deal. I mean, yeah, it came to light with Rodriguez being out. But Kentucky has, again, we have to step back sometimes, and I do myself. I don't want to tell anybody what to do. I have to step back and understand this is a new Kentucky football program. Kentucky has better athletes than Utah. Kentucky has the athletes that Florida's got. Maybe some positions, you can't say that Kentucky's going to the swamp and every position group is advantage to the Gators. That's different. So I do like that fact for Kentucky going down there. And Mark Stoops, how many times has he done this? Don't hit the panic button. Go back to work. See how much better we get week 2. And I want to see, again, Horsey to tackle improves that line because of communication, because of guidance inside. But again, communication is the key going down to Florida. If Kentucky does that, I think Kentucky can win.
Yeah.
But there's going to have to be a lot cleaned up between today and Saturday.
A couple of things. It was just offensive line was brand new. I mean, there was brand new everything.
Mm-hmm.
Eli Cox, first game at center. Tayshawn Manning, first game at Kentucky. Jeremy Flax, first college start. Jagger Burton, first college start. David Wollabaugh, first college start. Kenneth Horsey has to come off the bench for the first time in a long time in his playing career. Zach Yenzer, his first game as the number one offensive line coach at a Power 5 school. He had been in the NFL as an assistant. I guess he was at Kansas, but either way,
count Kansas, yeah.
So a long time. So there was a lot going on with that group. Then you dig into fall camp, a lot of injuries. They just haven't been able to build continuity. I think what we're seeing here is they're on plan C at tackle, and I don't know if there's a plan D or plan E.
There's not.
Plan A was addressed. If you lose Dare Rosenthal, address this in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Whatever reason, they did not address it in the transfer portal. Now there's not a lot of depth at tackle because everybody needs them. But there were some guys that they probably could have went after that they didn't, and that are starting for Power 5 schools now. Plan B was DeAndre Buford or David Wollabaugh win the job. That didn't happen. And so now you're on plans. Like that last thing you really want to do was kick out an all SEC potential guard and make him play tackle.
Yep.
And so that is, a concern, but it's what you got to do now. It's just what you got to do for the team. This is what's best for the team right now.
Yeah.
You just got to figure it out.
I'm sorry, Adam. I spoke over you like 3 times there.
It's okay. Go ahead, Freddie.
Delay, man. I'm that bad. Drew, it would have been a wonderful concept if the damn old line coach last year would have played some of these guys every now and then. Maybe Kentucky wouldn't be screwed right now. I mean, I think this is a direct reflection of not developing depth players from the offensive line coach a year ago.
Yeah.
And I'll take on anybody that would argue that. You get what you produce, and here we are with this tackle situation, and a large part of that has got to do with last year. I'm sorry, it does.
And you're not the only one that thinks that. I mean, the players themselves, without coming out and saying it directly, some of the younger guys said they feel like they were a little behind last year, and they weren't behind it because their own abilities. I think they realized they weren't getting the coaching they thought they deserved. Now they're seeing what good coaching is in Yenzer, but they're set back a little bit because that wasn't there last year.
Yeah.
It lazy on the recruiting trail. I mean, we could do a whole podcast on how that went wrong. We won't say his name again because Nick Saban doesn't even know it, but I do think that was a big hurt, that experiment 1 year with on the Big Blue Wall.
Yeah, I mean, and these guys didn't get game reps last year. Who redshirts these days? Who stays 4 or 5 years now? Why not play Jagger Burton last year? Why not throw David Wallaby out there? Why hurt Jeremy Flax's confidence and not put him out there? I mean, there's so many questions that I have. But hey, listen, I'll stop. Forget it. I'm done.
You know what though? Flax did play well, so you got to give him. The thing with linemen, my motto is, it's kind of like special teams. Like you don't notice them until they're bad, or you get like 17 kicks blocked, like LSU did last night.
It's not all on the line. There's a guy carrying the football too.
Yeah.
Exactly, Adam. Exactly.
And
but I think
there's tape. There's reps on tape you can find where they missed where they should have ran. They missed the cutback lane.
But
so it's not just the 4 guys, and they had their issues and they got to figure it out. But they need some help too.
The one thing that I do want to some of it on us as people who follow this program closely. You know, we just the Big Blue Wall has been great for 5+ years, so you just assume that you give them a lot of the benefit of the doubt in these situations. But the part that we really overlooked was just the injuries, and in between scrimmage 1 and scrimmage 2, when I asked Scangarello what he wanted to see, and he was just like, I just want to see the all five offensive line playing, because Manning had been banged up, right? Like, so had Horsey, you know, like they were moving all these parts around, and there was a lot of lack of continuity in the preseason, and I could hear it in Eli Cox's voice in the postgame. So I don't know if you can develop that in a week. Oh, I will also add too that I think for the most part they did a lot of, all right, we're not going to do a ton to help you. Like, we're going to keep a running back maybe, but like the tight end kind of stuff to slide protection over and add some more. Like, it felt like they were just saying, hey, show us what you got and we'll adjust accordingly. I think they can do more to help these guys out down in the swamp next weekend.
Well, there was.
Let's go ahead, Adam.
I think purposefully they weren't, like, there was some 5 and 6, mainly 6-man protections with the back. You're going to see 7-man protections with tight end here in Gainesville. I think they wanted to see what they had.
Yeah.
Especially with David Wollabaugh, I think they're at left tackle. So I think you're going to see a different offense here. Mark Stoops now is kind of notorious for how they play these week ones, whether it's a MAC team or Sunbelt team or an FCS team. Like, it's usually pretty sloppy. It's usually like close for a half when you weren't expecting it. There's usually an early turnover or two, but they kind of figure it out at the end and pull away late. And then you come out in week 2 and you're like, oh, they look a lot better.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case here, because I do want to get into this. Like, there is a rat poison scenario here with Florida. I mean,
love it.
They're playing Georgia for the East in the cocktail party this week. Like, it is, Billy Napier's already came out and he said, he's already trying to fight against it. I know people are going to want to crown the Gators this week because we all know how that fan base is. But, there's still a lot of work we need to do. But, like, all national media, they are going to be the talking point. Anthony Richardson won SEC Player of the Year. They're talking about him like he's, the next Tebow or Cam Newton this week. He's winning the Heisman, all of that. And if Kentucky's a team we think they are, for Florida, with their current roster situation, it'd be very, very hard to beat teams of Utah and Kentucky's caliber in back-to-back weeks. Like, to play that well, if Kentucky goes down there and plays well, like I think they are going to because of their track record. So from that aspect, I think Kentucky's walking into a pretty good situation here. It's just if they can't run the ball, you just don't feel great about the situation. They have to get something from this running game. But part of the reason you hire a guy from an NFL background is because of what he can do from a schematic standpoint to figure stuff out. Because in the NFL, you got to get creative because sometimes you're just guys you can't block on the other side. So you have to find ways just to get something on the ground to open up all the play action stuff you want to run. So I think big week for Rich Scangarello to see what he can draw up. But I do think from a situation standpoint, this is a good spot I think Kentucky's walking into. Like, they played good last week, but no one cares about that because Florida beat Utah and because Anthony Richardson ran for a 40-yard touchdown. And he made some crazy good plays in the red zone.
The 2-point play was nuts. And
so they are going to be hyped up big time this week. And who knows, maybe they are like top 10 good, top 5 good. But if you're not that good, it's going to be very hard for any program to beat teams caliber of Utah and Kentucky, I think, in back-to-back weeks.
The one thing though about all of I'm steering into this scenario now because the big thing about Florida under Dan Mullen, Freddie, they were just soft as hell, right? Like, they had a ton of really good skill players, Kadarius Toney, Kyle Pitts, like the receivers, the quarterbacks, right? I mean, they were all good, but they didn't play very physical. They went out, and I thought Utah was going to just ram it down their throat, and they were just going to tap out. Billy Napier got them playing some physical football. So now we got to hope that the rat poison sets in, that they are teed up. But the thing about Anthony Richardson, though, like putting all that aside, like I think Kentucky does have the right guys to combat a lot of this. But it goes back to the red zone play. And that dude is going to score. Like if they get in the red zone, I'm considering it a touchdown. Like Anthony Richardson is that hard to defend down in the red zone. And that's what Drew, it goes back to me being so pissed off about Chris Rodriguez because Kentucky had 4 red zone trips in the first half last week. 2 of them, they kicked field goals. 1 of them, they threw an interception because they couldn't just give it to 24 and let him bowl his way into the end zone. You need guys like that in the red zone. And that's what Richardson does better than most.
Richardson's obviously very scary, and I don't even know what you tell your team when they've seen that clip on Instagram and TikTok and everything for the last 2 days because I've seen it 1,000 times myself. But I mean, Kentucky's pretty equipped with a pretty good linebacker core, as we've discussed. I'm not saying that they're going to stop him, but they're about as ready as you can be, especially with how Jaquez Jones looked that entire game and DeAndre Square now playing Florida for a 12th time. Those guys won't be rattled by the swamp and everyone around them. So, yes, I mean, that guy is unbelievable. But I do like Kentucky's front 7 enough, mainly the linebackers there, in a goal line situation to at least have a chance. Now, I'm with you. I'm not going to be very optimistic, but at least you have a crew that has an opportunity.
Yeah, obviously different coaching, right? But, like, Florida this time last year had, like, the running game, I mean, everybody was scared of. Like, the week before, they ran for, like, 260 yards on Alabama, and it was – how could Kentucky kind of stop them? And Brad White figured it out. They've had all summer to watch Louisiana tape, and they've been game planning for this game for a while. They're going to have a plan here. And, they are more familiar with the personnel, obviously, than Kyle Whittingham in Utah. And if you dig into Utah's personnel, it was brand new defensive line. Like, that was the big question with Utah. It was like replacing the defensive line, and then they lost their alpha dog at Mike linebacker, Devin Lloyd, who's now with the Jaguars. It was a first-round pick. So their front was kind of retooling there. So that was a tough first game for Utah. I do think Florida's got, like, a good offensive line. It's one of the best offensive lines they had. A guy from Louisiana, Osiris Torrance, is a stud at right guard. So they are going – it's going to be a challenge stopping that run game. But when you look at their personnel receiver-wise, like, there's no one that – it's not like it's not Steve Spurrier personnel at receiver. Like, there's no one that really scares you, I would say. Now, I say that someone's going to go 60 yards on top of Kentucky's head. But, like, I think you don't – like, that doesn't scare you. So I think Kentucky should be able to handle that with how they play, especially how they take away the big plays. And it just comes down to getting 15 on the ground. Where he scares you really is off script, where then he breaks contain, safety gets out of position, someone sneaks out, he can throw it over top. But Utah did a good job of keeping everything in front. They just couldn't get them behind the chains at all, and that's how Florida scored a lot of their points. But I think Kentucky's going to have a good plan, and I'm very interested to see how they come out and kind of scheme up against really Florida on both sides of the ball.
I'm excited. I'm a little nervous. But I do like that you have 1,700 years of experience with linebackers. You're going to have Trevin Wallace back. That was another injury piece of news that we learned today. It's kind of a game time decision going into the game. De'Aaron Jackson, he's a good player. He'll be fine. So they did hold out Wallace for a game. People forget, but they don't at all because it's one of the greatest plays ever. Wallace's 76-yard return for a touchdown last year against the Gators. There's so much angst I'm feeling in this game, Drew. I don't know what it is because I just want to beat Florida so bad. It's been so good to get that upper hand on them, and I hope that not the juice, but I just want that. I love having that upper hand on the Gators, damn it. And their coach isn't as hateable as Dan Mullen. Now Mullen's trying to get back on our good side, but I still want to put Florida in their place. People are so quick to jump on the Anthony Richardson bandwagon and abandon the Will Levis one. It just makes me angry. I want to bring him back down to earth, but I'm still very worried about playing this football game without a couple of team captains.
And it's not just about getting another one on Florida after decades of losing to them. if you do lose this game, which is completely fair when you're a 5-point underdog, there's really nothing they can do the next 2 weeks to get that full excitement back. People will still be down, even though that's a little unfair. But if you win this and assume you take care of business at home, you've got a 4-0 record heading down to likely a 4-0 Ole Miss. And the excitement is through the roof. And that one, of course, is obviously winnable. I think Kentucky's a better team than Ole Miss. And Lord willing, we'll have the running backs back and the line will figure some things out. So I think really this Florida game isn't just about beating Florida. It's about keeping everybody with this energy we've never seen before for the next month until you really get into the meat of the SEC schedule.
Yeah, it's a table setter for the season. Like Kentucky can get to where they get to with the loss to Florida, but it eliminates pretty much all wiggle room. But if he's the game you can go down there and still as a short dog, then anything's possible.
But
this season,
I will say though that the season isn't over if you lose to Florida either.
No,
You've got between Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Florida. Win at least one of them, but if you win two, like gravy, baby, you can still be in a New Year's Six game. So that's something we also have to keep in mind going down into the swamp. Freddie, I don't know how much of that Florida-Utah game you've watched, but I'm just curious, generally speaking, what are your thoughts on the Gators?
Well, when Mark Stoops speaks, I listen. When he says don't they're not hitting the panic button on the offensive line and all that, then I believe him. And I think Kentucky and Florida personnel wise is a wash for me. There's two players to look for on the Florida defense and how they're utilized. Brenton Cox Jr. is a pass rusher. Florida had 0 sacks against Utah on Saturday and 2 tackles for loss. So the Gators didn't exactly dominate the line of scrimmage and get across the line of scrimmage, but I want to see how Trey Dean plays this Kentucky offense. With Rodriguez out and Kentucky not being able to run the football on Saturday, maybe that's different because the game plan was, listen, let's throw the football. Kentucky didn't get to a lot of exotic personnel sets. There was a lot of things Kentucky did and did not do in that game plan that I think is going to be different against Florida. But how does Trey Dean play? I think he's a very good player, a safety for Florida. You're not going to have him sneaking down in the box to stop the run with Rodriguez. So you're going to allow a very good safety to play at depth to prevent the shots downfield and to play the pass, because that's how Florida, until Kentucky can hurt them a little bit through the run, that's how Trey Dean is going to play. He's going to play back, play center field, try to get a pick here and there. So for me, those two players are key. Anthony Richardson, in my opinion, is special. But again, I think Kentucky is much better defensively than Utah, better athletes. We'll see. I mean, I'm not giving up on this game at all. Like I said, Stoops said not to hit the panic button. I'm not. I think we're going to see a different Kentucky team, which excites me. But also, there's so many newness to this. Last week was a new to play in a home game, to play in your first college game, to play in a new position, to play in whatever. This week it's new to travel. How many of these players have never been on a plane before? That happens. And I was a player on the staff. I mean, you got players that's never flown before. I mean, it's a big deal for the first travel game. So many unknowns here, but I do think Kentucky will play better. The personnel to me is a wash. I think Richardson is a difference maker at quarterback. Napier brought some tone setters over from Louisiana with him, helped him with the locker room, helped him create culture. I love the hire. I think he's a great organizer because last year Florida was soft, unorganized, undisciplined, and unprepared. I think that's totally opposite this year. But I do think that Kentucky, if you take a step back, has the better football team. It's going to be two good quarterbacks going at it. But for me, how does Brenton Cox do on the edge, and how does Trey Dean play back there? Will he sneak up if Kentucky can start running the game? Does he stay back in coverage? If so, then it's going to be hard to throw anything vertical against the Gators.
Yeah, Florida ran for 280 yards against Utah. If they run for 180 yards on Saturday, Kentucky's not winning a football game. 140 on like 10 carries or 11 carries came from Anthony Richardson. So you got to limit. Well, you're not going to stop them completely. You have to limit the run. Utah ran for 230 yards, average 6 yards per attempt. They got 80-plus yards from their quarterback, who's kind of a similar athlete, I would say, to Will Levis, 2 20-plus yard runs. They can be had within their run defense. So that, like I get back to, I'm interested to see what Rich Gangarello can scheme up. If the offensive line can get aggressive, hold their own, and make a couple good blocks, they could really get something on the ground, and that could open up everything for Kentucky.
Yeah, I think the game's going to be won or lost in the red zone.
And that too.
Kentucky was not good against Miami at all. As far as red zone, there's a difference. Red zone conversions, whether it counts field goals and touchdowns, and red zone touchdowns. Kentucky 3 out of 6 on red zone touchdowns. Florida, I think, is automatic with Richardson. He reminds me of Lamar Jackson in the red zone. Just buckle up and hope he fumbles. Is about all you can do, because you're not stopping him inside the 5-yard line.
And defensively, they both these teams kind of play the same. This is not Grantham over there. They're going to be willing to give up some stuff underneath to guard the big play. So when you play like that, there's going to be a lot. You're going to be in your territory a lot as a defense. And Kentucky kind of plays like that. So I think both these teams are going to move the ball. It's what they do when they cross the other team's 40. Like, who is best at finishing drives? I think it's a huge part of this game. And then obviously, turnovers. This is going to be a close game. It's probably going to be a limited possession game. So a turnover is huge in this contest. If you go up there +2, that's a really big deal in a game like this.
One thing I love about our new weekly shows at 7 p.m. on the KSR Football Podcast, they're live on YouTube. We have the chat feature. We also have the super chat feature. The chat, and this is just a lot of fun. It's new things. Come join us every week. Luke D wants to ask if we think they'll move the pocket with Levis to help the line and get him in space. And to add to that question, do we think this is Will Levis runs the ball some more? Like it? You're wanting him to lower his shoulders. Is he going to run the damn ball?
Yeah, I think you have to, just a little bit, not a lot. I think you just got to get something. You got to manufacture some yards on the ground. I think jet sweep's going to be in the package this week, and I think you'll see maybe a design run or two with Levis. Nothing crazy, but something to try to just give the defense another look. And I do think you're gonna see a different pass protection plan on Saturday than you saw against Miami, Ohio. They were pretty, I thought, vanilla in their pass pro plan. And Scangarello talked about his background day one, media day, about how he wasn't worried about protecting the quarterback and whatnot. I think you're going to see a more detailed kind of pass protection plan especially for Brenton Cox. Mm-hmm. Him and Gervon Dexter, number 9 and number 1, are the two guys up front. Kentucky's got to get blocked. If they get those blocked, in theory, Levis should have some time to dissect the defense. So I think you're going to see some different stuff, and mainly stuff they maybe held close to the vest. I think that was part of it, kind of how they're going to move the pocket and how they're going to do things in the passing game to make sure Levis is upright and has a chance to make some throws. But at the same time, there are times where you just you're in 3rd and 8. They know you're passing. You got to be able to protect. So that can Kentucky hold up enough in those situations is also important.
Freddie made the point earlier. I don't know how we made it 25 minutes without talking about the O-line. I don't know how we made it 55 minutes without mentioning that other team that lost to Syracuse. Oh, man. Drew Luckett and I were listening to call-in radio at 1:30 a.m., and you know how I realized I like more than call-in radio after a bad loss is Facebook comments on Louisville football posts. And I know sometimes the algorithm is scary, but thank you so much, Facebook algorithm, for just shoving Louisville football posts in my face. It's just like a picture of Malik Cunningham, and people are just calling him a bum. There was one lady who says, I usually put up my Louisville wreath before football season. Well, I'm glad I forgot it this year because they're a bunch of losers. Like, so funny. I can't get enough of it. The sheriff, he's trying to launch an investigation into Chris Rodriguez because he doesn't have a team worth talking about. They're a flaming disaster, and we're not even past Labor Day yet.
Yeah, when the three of us left the stadium at about 1:30 Saturday night, we were all jacked up on coffee, and you just can't go to sleep. So I sat up in bed with the replay of the UK game on, and I just searched the word Satterfield on Twitter, just scrolled. You don't even hit top, you hit last, so you can see every tweet. I just scrolled for hours and hours watching Louisville fans complain, saying, leave him there in Syracuse, don't come home with him. Then I'll wake up and I think Christmas is over and I'm going to be bored with my toys. And Eric Crawford puts out that story of how they were trying to raise $50,000 a month in NIL, but they only got $450, so they lowered their goal to $2,500. I knew they were going to be bad, and I knew the wheels would fall off this hype train eventually, but I didn't think week 1 at Syracuse by 24 points would be how it'd fall apart. But I loved every second of it.
Yeah, there's a big difference in Bentleys and airplanes and running through the A-gap at Syracuse. And I don't know how you can expect Syracuse because they're so good. That's such a tough place to play. But
they couldn't stop Garrett Schrader.
Two words.
It wasn't Anthony Richardson. It was Garrett freaking Schrader.
Yeah, big difference in recruiting picture hype and actually playing the game of football.
Uh-huh.
And I think Louisville fans out on Saturday.
Two words here: fake juice.
Yeah,
fake juice.
Oh,
I thought their fake juice would at least last a month. It didn't make it a game.
I mean,
at least they had their favorite celebrity at Ohio State that morning because they knew they weren't getting game day. I mean, the wheels were falling apart early on the Louisville football train.
Somebody said recruits are going to be flipping like a Waffle House pancake, and that's where we were taking in a lot of content. We stopped at the Waffle House on Georgetown Road, and we're just soaking in all of the Louisville tweets. Oh my goodness! Oh man, my cheeks hurt from laughing.
I can take this question from Tommy D. We just got, who also, what do we call these super chats?
Yeah, super chat.
Super chats.
Super duper.
Thank you, Tommy, for the super chat. We're going to go out with that money tonight and party, celebrating this 1-0. But you asked, just out of curiosity and something different, is next year without Levis going to be considered a rebuild year? And the answer is, as long as Levis looks good and the offense looks good, who in the transfer portal wouldn't want to throw to Dane Key, Barry Brown, and play for an NFL offense? So don't you worry about life after Levis if things go well this season. And maybe I've heard that phone's already been, well, not ringing. I don't know what's legal, but let's just say people are already looking towards Kentucky if that door opens.
There's research being done.
Yeah. Who wouldn't want to play for an NFL coordinator with 2 receivers that are going to be going to the NFL too? I'd leave whatever scenario I'm in that's not some major program.
Again, if Will Levis is good, Kentucky should win quite a few ball games this year, and it should lead to success there.
Yeah. There will be a line out the door.
I hate to keep coming back to this, but this is just a lot of ways. It's just the season this year. You just need, you got to ride your horse here, and Levis is your horse. And so, even this week, this is all right, 7, go win that's a lot what it might be this week. Go win us the game here. I think it's a big moment for him on the road. You eat big ESPN. You got Joe Tessitore and Greg McElroy on the call.
Man,
this is a national game. A lot of people are going to be watching this game, and it's a big stage for him. Big stage for Kentucky in a spot they typically play well here at the second FBS game of the season. So very just excited to see what they can kind of put out because from a coaching standpoint, it feels like probably Stoops and them are chomping at the bit this week because they're worried about the O-line and whatnot, but they have some good motivation angles to go with here. And so very excited to see what happens at the Swamp on Saturday night.
I'm worried about Freddie's neighbors, especially with the test effect in play. My blood pressure's going to be bad. We saw the test effect in week 1. Florida State and LSU refused to win the game. Just quickly, we got to run through some of these crazy games. Which game was crazier ending? Florida State LSU or App State North Carolina?
App State North Carolina.
40 fourth quarter points.
What's that?
40 fourth quarter points from App State, and they lost.
Yeah, one thing, Gene Chizik goes from the studio to that defense and gives up 63 to App State. 1, 2. I may or may not been having a little play on that game, so I was tuned in a little bit more than the Florida State LSU game.
Both of them are just
– with Nick. Do y'all see him froze like that?
Oh, we're back.
Both of them are just it was 2 teams that going out of their way to beat themselves.
Yeah.
North Carolina returned on an onside kick. You could have
fallen down and
game's over. Florida State running that. I hate that little toss power play that team's running, especially on the goal line. It seems like you're asking for trouble. I mean, all you had to do is really knee it there, 3 times, and you make a field goal, the game's over. So, and then as soon as they open those doors, you got to give those other teams credit. They took advantage to give us some wild football. And I don't think it was just them. There were some wild games this week. Got started on Thursday. Penn State Purdue was nuts. Pitt West Virginia was nuts.
Yep.
Utah Florida went back and forth. We got to see the end of it up in the press box. And there was a few others too. It was just really a wild and fun weekend. NC State East Carolina was crazy.
Yeah.
Kicker misses a field goal. NC State can't get a first down. Or it misses an extra point, comes back and makes a field goal. It was just a nutty weekend, and it might be a sign of things to come for future.
And you can't gloss over the fact that Virginia Tech's just a dumpster fire.
Oh God, no wonder Tavian Robinson got out of there. What a smart decision. And here's a final question from Luke D. He asked who would win in a fight, Roush or Young Freddie. Oh, Roush is not a fighter. Yeah. Young Freddie from the mountains with that mullet, like I'm getting my ass whooped. All right, like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Well, I'm a very private person, but Drew knows a little bit about my scuffling history. I may get into one of these days, but I did not mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, as a gambling man, when we do the pick 3 this week, if that's an option, all 3 of my picks are Freddie in a fight.
Yeah. Which, speaking of, big shout out to the Wildcats. As much as folks were, we shared our fair amount of criticism throughout this show, but Kentucky covered and kind of made it look easy in the second half. They gave up a field goal. Yeah. They hit their team total. Will Levis said after the game, he was like, that's the angriest I've ever been after a 300-yard, 3-touchdown game. Like, Kentucky did a lot of great things. It was a great start to the season. They're going to be hitting the reset button a little bit. We might be seeing Jordan Wright back against Florida. Hopeful that might be the case.
Really, that's a question right there.
Some suits might be taking a holiday today, so they couldn't let him come back until Tuesday. But we're going to – there's a lot of last Saturday was fun because it felt like you kind of could do whatever. But now there's this – I've got the anxiousness is already building up for me. This is a huge game on Saturday. Can't wait to see how it all unfolds.
I got to know where Freddie's watching it. He's always so superstitious. Like the cat's got to be in the window and you've got to go outside. Or what's the game watch party look like at the Maggard house?
Yeah. Well, if it gets a little dicey, I turn my phone on the radio and I go into my bathroom, turn the lights off and hide. And if it gets real dicey, I put my phone in the living room, go in the bathroom where I can't hear anything. And then I'll go outside on my porch and watch through the window from time to time. And I have 2 hat racks in my house, and I'll change each rack at least 3 times. So I'll take every hat from one rack and put it on the other. And then if things aren't going good, I'll go to the other rack and move them back to the original hat rack. So, I'm a mess. I'm just a total disaster on game day.
Oh, man. Well, we could all be celebrating Saturday night in the swamp. We're going to run it back. I'm excited. We're all excited. Thank you so much for listening, for watching. Thanks to Justice Dental for being the sponsor of the KSR Football Podcast. And go plug in promo code KSR at prizepicks.com. Subscribe on YouTube. Drew, did I miss any other housekeeping? We've got a lot of stuff going on now.
Yeah, I mean, we had the first action in so long, we could have done 3 hours here. But I think we covered most of it and answered the questions everyone had. So great work, everyone.
Thank you all so much. We'll be back next Monday right here, same time, same place. But we'll have a lot more between now and then. For Adam Luckett, Drew Franklin, and Freddie Maggard, I'm Nick Roush. This has been the KSR Football Podcast.